Hey, good evening. My name is Gary. I've just been at the book launch and I think it was awesome, it was amazing. Just want to say congratulations to you, Habiba, for the wonderful work she's done. I've definitely learned a lot, so thank you for everything you're teaching us.
My name is Sandra and I came to the Fistula book launch by Habiba. I found the book launch really interesting because before I came to this event, I've never heard of Fistula. And a lot of the things she was saying, like she found out about Fistula when she was like similar. I'm a lot younger than everyone here, I'm 14. So she found out about Fistula when she was my age. So it's good to experience the same thing as her and to try and educate people who are like, because I'm African, you'd expect me to know about everything that's going on with women that give birth and stuff. So it was really nice to come to this event here about a children's book about a really big topic about this. So it was really, really
Hello, Habiba. My name is Abel. I was at your back launch. Yeshialem learns about Fistula. It was really interesting, and I do have some knowledge about Fistula, but I learned a lot about Fistula at the book launch, and I really want to say congratulations.
My name is Naima, and prior to this event, I didn't know anything about Fistula. Coming to this event, I've learned a lot, and as a fellow African, I will go back and educate everyone else in my household, my aunties, even my uncles now, because she's giving me the reason to tell my uncles and even my dad possibly. But because it's such a taboo topic, this has motivated me to make it more of a platform for at least there's dialogue between males and females, and also just raising awareness. So I was really inspired by it, and the great work that she's done at such a young age is empowering.
And her ethnic group came up, the Tuareg. And so then, in typing Tuareg, an article about her appeared in the Wall Street Journal. So I looked at the article and I was reading it. I was reading about her experience with fistula, and I was so struck by everything because I had never heard about this affliction in my life. And I said, what is this fistula? And so Nafia, she was in labor for 4 days. She was from a town in Niger called Terbiat. She's from a nomadic family, nomadic people. And her father took her to the hospital in Niger's capital city, Niamey, and she was treated by a team of obstetric surgeons there. Unfortunately, she gave birth to a stillborn baby boy, so her baby died. And her fistula was repaired. So yay, it was beautiful. She went back to school. She was studying French, math, biology. She said she wanted to be a doctor because she was very inspired by a number of staff she met while she was at the hospital, a female member of staff, and she said, I want to be like that woman, I want to be like an important woman. So she said she was going to become a doctor. She went back to school, that's enough that with her teacher, and so it was great. And after reading that article, I decided that I would look some more into the issue of fistula. So then I found another article about fistula, about an afghan. But this article was very devastating because it said, unfortunately, due to complications of an infection, an afghan passed away. So 3 years after her fistula was repaired, she passed away. And I think that's what changed my world, honestly, because it was very striking to have her alive in one article and dead in the next. And then it was after that point that I started doing a lot of research in fistula. The story came later on, Boy came later on, so it was all because of an afghan. This was when I was in high school, so grade 10. Oh, you can't see the full article, but it's okay. Anyway, I did a lot of writing for a student newspaper in high school, and this was one of the articles I had written when I just started high school, so it was about an afghan. And then a few years later, we went to Ethiopia with my mom and my sister, so this was part of our trip. I made it to Hamlin Fistula, the Addis Ababa Fistula Hospital, and that was a dream come true, an absolute dream come true. And it was there that my work and my understanding of fistula became personalized. It became real at the hospital because I had the privilege of meeting patients there, so you're going to see them right now. That was patient number 1. Her name is Astris. She's from Oromia, the Oromia region in Ethiopia. And she had an obstetric fistula. Later there was a Muwadat. She was from the north, a place called Dehana. And some more pictures from the hospital. And it was very interesting meeting the girls for so many reasons. But what occurred to me while I was at the hospital was that they had the same aspirations and ambitions as I had. We were same age group, similar age range. And so fistula is it's a medical injury, they're pathologized as it is, we know they're at a hospital, we can see that they're ill. When I got there, I said, oh my gosh, I don't even want to ask questions about their fistula. I don't even care to know really, because I know that they're there because of fistula. So instead, we spoke about other things. We spoke about school, we spoke about their hobbies, we spoke about their interests, their favorite moments in life. Amawadat, this one, her name is Amawadat. She said she was most happy during the Ethiopian millennium, when it was the year 2000 for Ethiopians. It made her the happiest. And Asris, she spoke about going to school and how she was at the top of her class and how she played sports like volleyball, and she was very active. So these are some of the lives that the fistula patients conduct before obstetric fistula. They're very active young women. Some of them go to school, not all of course, but some have been to school or were in school prior to fistula. So that was the hospital. That's Amawadat again. And then I went back to Canada. Actually, I think this was before, this is December 2011, so it was before, a little before a trip to Ethiopia. And I started planning. I had this idea of setting up an organization, so I started the planning. So this is these are the very early stages here, Canada. And so the process of setting up an organization, it was very tasking, but of course very rewarding in the end. So a logo, like I really like visuals, I love imagery, so I said, oh, okay, I need to have a really cool logo. So I drew a sketch, I drew the writing for the logo. Maybe some of you can tell what has inspired my logo. It's a secret. Okay. And so then I sent it to a friend of mine who's a visual artist, and he came back with that. So from this to that. Okay. I thought you guys would say, ooh. And so since developing Boy in 2012 and in Halifax, so I'm from Toronto, those of you who know Toronto, we're proud Torontonians, but I live in Halifax. I've been there for 3 years now. I'm, I guess, becoming a Londoner. And so we do a lot of awareness building around fistula outreach with young women from backgrounds where young women who come from countries, or their parents come from countries where fistula is prevalent. So we're having a screening of a film called A Walk to Beautiful. So my mom and I were going around the town. I went with my super stapler, my heavy duty stapler, and we're posting flyers everywhere. So I just want to show you some of the work that we do in Halifax. This was a film screening, so it was well attended, and everyone was amazed. And when they saw the film, they said, oh, this is so great. I understand it much more now. It feels more direct, it feels more personal because there's imagery, there are visuals. Before, all we were hearing, everything we heard prior was just abstract. It was all conversation, it was discussion. Now we can see images, so images. This was sometime after I had developed I went back to Toronto because we have this literary festival in Canada called the Word on the Street. We have it in several cities throughout the country. And this was the Word on the Street, Toronto. And I had presented a short story on fistula, not this one, but very remote regions. So because they're in such remote regions, it's hard to have an accurate sense of the scale of the problem. I know some doctors, Dr. Susie Alneal, she works a lot in the area of fistula. She believes it's about 3 million women. Some researchers say 2 million women. So there does need to be more research, but it is difficult for researchers because the women are hard to access. Okay, let's explain the 2 main types of fistula. So the first type is vesicovaginal fistula. This is the main type. Usually when people say obstetric fistula, they refer to this fistula. So this is between the bladder and vagina, and the result of it is urine, discharge of urine. And then there's a second kind of fistula called rectovaginal fistula. This one's between the rectum and the vagina, so it results in discharge of feces. But there's also something called double fistula. This is scary, it's double trouble, because it means that the affected woman will have both. She'll have vesicovaginal and she'll have rectovaginal, so she'll leak both urine and feces. Julian spoke to this earlier, so I won't belabor the point. But yes, early marriage, FGM cannot cause fistula, but definitely there are associations. The direct cause of fistula, bear in mind this is the only direct cause of fistula, is a prolonged and obstructed labor. The UNFPA identifies 3 delays that contribute to fistula. These are the 3 delays: seeking medical care, reaching a facility, and then receiving immediate care once at the facility. Because these writing systems to effectively overcome, to help doctors and women in her community in Ethiopia overcome fistula, because it's in these scripts that there's information on how to repair fistula. That's a fictional part. But it's all in the scripts. It's all in the writing systems. This is Kidal. It's a town in Mali. So there you have it written with Latin letters. And then on the other side of the stone, it's written in their writing system, their native writing system, Tifinak. Meroe, Kingdom of Meroe, Sudan, Merotic. So that's also in the story, and it's very old. It's not used today, but it's in the story. I decided to revive it for the sake of the book. So that's also there. Sabian, Southern Arabian, it's also there. Yes. So in the story, I wanted to include writing. Writing is central. Writing is key to the story. And a lot of fistula patients, they're illiterate. They cannot read or write, which is unfortunate because a lot of health information, whether in pamphlets, whether on road signs and banners, it's expressed, it's conveyed through literature. So these patients, they cannot read or write. So I wanted to create a cohesion. I wanted to make a link between these two, perhaps very separate, very far removed realities. The reality of many fistula patients who are illiterate, and then writing, literacy. And as part of many reintegration programs at fistula hospitals, at the Addis Ababa Fistula Hospital in Ethiopia, at the Aberdeen Women's Center in Sierra Leone, at many hospitals, literacy is taught once their fistulas are repaired. And they partake in several activities, some of it reading, writing, school. Okay. And very quickly, so literacy is key, and there are also other ways that are being employed to help overcome fistula. So technology, we're living in such a technologically savvy world, and there's this M-Pesa mobile money transfer system that was developed by a Kenyan, I think, perhaps Kenyan. It's a mobile money transfer system. And a lot of fistula patients are using it because what can happen is that you can transfer the money in a city. Fistula patients in rural areas, you can transfer the money. They'll receive it on a cell phone. They can get on a bus to take them into the city to a medical facility where they can have their fistulas repaired. And this is all happening because of technology, mobile money transfers. So I think this is really cool. There are hotlines in Sierra Leone, Break the Silence. There's a fistula hotline. So women from out of the area can call in and say, or people from the community can say, oh, I've seen a woman with these symptoms, could it be fistula? And then they can direct her to the hospital. And again, thank you. I'd like to wrap up my presentation here. So I just wanted to tell you a bit about myself and what inspired me, what motivated me to write this. And I will hand it over to Isra. Thank you.
Habiba's written a book about obstetric fistula. It's very groundbreaking because it's a book about fistula and it's also a book for children, which the two don't really come together very often. You spoke earlier about how your idea came about and you were inspired by the article and Anafgat, which is an amazing story. I just wanted to dig a little bit deeper and just get into the dynamic, come to the dynamic around Anafgat and why Anafgat specifically, and for what reason did it touch a nerve with you?
Sure. Great. So why Anafgat? I'm related to her on so many levels. I spoke about culture. Culture was very key. I was looking similar to my West African heritage. She was West African from Niger. We were around the same age. I was 12 years old when I learned about fistula. They said Anafgat was 14 when she had this experience. And so I related to her on a cultural level, on just really a humanitarian, empathetic level. There was age. Basically, I realized that I could have been Anafgat in another place at another time. And then I think what also hit home was when I read the second article about her and she was dead. So she was alive in one, she was dead in the next, and that was devastating. So I was very compelled by all those factors.
And I think personally, what's really important is whoever's written that article has inspired you and inspired so much of what's happening today. So I think it's really important to follow up with articles and read such articles, and it's important for journalists to write such articles. I think it's very, very inspiring. So I don't want to give away too much of the book because I know what happens, but in general, this story is about a young girl who takes a journey, and along this journey, she meets a lot of people, and it's a huge journey for a girl to undertake, and it's also quite a very dream-filled journey. Do you see yourself in Yeshialem?
Very good question. So to what extent is Habiba reflected in Yeshialem? I'm not sure. Perhaps you'd have to read the story. You'd have to decide how long you know me to really know. But no, I can't answer that. I think that as an author, you always have influence. I think if you're a researcher, if you're a writer, it's really hard to remove yourself from the content, from the subject. I think inevitably you'll be reflected in it. In the story, as you all already know, there's a lot about ethnography, ethnic culture, language, writing systems, and I've already told you that I'm very passionate about all those topics, and it's in the story. Yeshialem, she travels on a whim. She decides to travel from east to west. That's definitely something I would do. So perhaps I am reflected in Yeshialem.
I thought so. I thought it was really easy. So the other thing I wanted to ask was, you really seamlessly kind of woven the story, her journey, and just African culture, geography, languages, scriptures. That's a lot to put into the one story, but I guess it keeps everybody quite interested and intrigued. And I definitely learned a lot about the different scriptures. You know, I'm African, I'm East African, and I still need a lot more, information. But how did you do that? Because that's not very easy to intertwine all of these things within a story.
Thank you. I found it very easy to do. Again, having a profound interest in African culture, geography, language made it very easy. I include references to various ethnic groups. There's the Tuareg, there's Bani Amr from Eritrea, that's in there. I didn't have to do a lot of research on this because it was something I'm interested in. So I found it very easy to seamlessly weave all of this into the story. But I think it's necessary because it provides a context. And as I said, when I met the girls in Ethiopia who had Fistula, they were within a context, they were within a culture, a country, that's very textured, that's very rich, that's very diverse. And I think in storytelling it's very important to give the context. Yes, it's Fistula, it's an injury, it's an affliction, but it's more than that, and you have to put it within context. I think it's uplifting. So a lot of people think Fistula is a depressing topic. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be, depending on what angle you take. In stories, everything is about context, and in the story, I give the context.
That's perfect. So going to Ethiopia, I wanted to know why Yeshialem was from Ethiopia and why Ethiopia holds such an importance. She travels to different countries, but it seems like Ethiopia was, kind of the heart and soul of the story.
Okay. You think you know? Okay. As far as it's difficult for me. Okay. First and foremost, I came face to face with Fistula in Ethiopia. It's the first country I visited where Fistula was prevalent. A few years later, I went to Guinea. I have roots in Guinea. I went to Syria as well. There's also Fistula there. It's so widespread. I came face to face with Fistula in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a great place. Also, I felt very connected when I visited. It's a deeply spiritual place. As well, the landscape, the topography. Ethiopia has the scariest mountains in the whole world. Very rugged terrain, very scary terrain. But I thought the topography, I thought Ethiopia would make a good setting, because what's interesting is that a lot of the Fistula patients, they're used to this. As in traveling long distances. Not that they're used to it, sorry. But they have to do this in order. Many of them, they live maybe 17 hours away from the nearest road. They could live days from the nearest medical facility, clinic. Sometimes they'll come to one clinic only to realize that they cannot be repaired there. They have to go to Makale, to Addis Ababa. So sometimes where they go and they think, okay, my dream has come true, my days here, they cannot, because they might not have the resources to repair them there. So Ethiopia provides a really good setting because it underscores the long distances, the journeys, just the reality of fistula patients. Something else just came to mind. But then Yeshialem, she makes this long journey from east to west. She travels through many countries, Ethiopia, Niger, Sudan, Libya, because it also, I think, highlights that it's not confined to Ethiopia and also represents her frame of mind, her mindset. She's very global, Yeshialem.
Right. Another question I had, and it's a very topical question about women's health in general, is the story of Saleh, who is one of the men that are involved in the story of Yeshialem. Why did you choose to, he does a lot of campaigning for fistula, I don't want to give it away, but why did you include, it's a very women's health topic, how come you included a man and for what reason?
Great. So Saleh is a very interesting character. I think he's my favorite, aside from Yeshialem. I really like Saleh. And I was very deliberate in creating his character. I made him a man deliberately. Because a lot of people think fistula is a woman's issue, but it's really not. I wanted to underscore that fistula is for everyone, it's a global problem. Pregnancy, childbirth, it's not about women, it's about men too. It happens as a result of men and women. So I think it's very important that people have an understanding of that. And I know a lot of guys, they don't know where they fit into the discussion of maternal health, of women's health, of fistula. At times I think just discussing it can be very detailed, but it's necessary to have these discussions. And as well, in many societies and many communities, it's men who have important positions of leadership, important positions of power that can affect women's health, that affect women. And their access to healthcare, their access to resources, they're often the policymakers. So if they're not aware of these issues, if they're not taking part in these discussions, they're not going to allow their leadership to be in favor of women, and we need them to help eradicate fistula. So Saleh, he empathizes with the fistula patients. He's a passionate campaigner, as you said, against obstetric fistula, and he's a man.
Perfect answer. Okay, so
yes, I would love to. So English is a great starting point, of course. And in many countries in Africa, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, English is main language. I think I'd love to see this book in Fulani, in Arabic, in Amharic.
in all the languages basically. I think what's important as well, I might add, is if it's in Amharic and it's in Arabic, you can use it for students within those countries. So you can use it in Ethiopia, you can use it in the Arab-speaking countries. You can translate it in a lot of, because I think this would really be great for students, young girls in those countries to learn the story, but in a different way. It's not so gruesome and it's not in their face. Because I think for us, definitely in the medical world, fistula, everybody comes up and does slideshows and just puts horrible, gruesome pictures to kind of just offend people and make them, and sometimes you need that, but I think this is so beautifully done. And it's a gentle introduction into fistula along with so many other factors and facts and great stories. So, Habiba, you've been amazing. Thank you. Thank you for letting us share this with you. And thank you for, writing such an amazing book. Now I want to ask if anybody else has questions in the audience. Anybody questions or comments or anything?
Mike. I believe last year when we joined the End Fistula campaign, Boy joined the UNFPA campaign to end fistula. That was a major step. As far as collaborations, federal agencies or policies in Canada, we're still working on that. So no, not any at the moment, but we're definitely endeavoring to do that, and I think we're at a point where that's definitely a viable next step, I should say. And what was your other question? That's it. So I answered them both. And then Abed, thank you. The question around, child marriage, yes. Yeah, so there is an association in the sense that child marriage cannot cause an obstetric fistula. We have to be careful about that. The only thing that causes an obstetric fistula is a prolonged obstructed labor. That's the only real cause. Everything aside from that, whether it's FGM, whether it's child marriage, it's an association. It's definitely a contributing factor. But let's bear in mind that any woman anywhere in the world, woman here in this audience right here, could have an obstructed labor, could, potentially develop an obstetric fistula. Why you don't see it in these parts of the world is due to emergency medical care, in other words, a C-section. So many women are in labor have prolonged labor, but at some point you have to intervene, you have to have a C-section. So that's considered emergency medical care.
የአፍሪካ ሴቶች በጣም ቆንጆ ናቸው። የአፍሪካኖች በጣም ቆንጆ ናቸው። እባካችሁ ወንዶች ተንከባከቧቸው። መማር ያስከብራል፣ ነፃነት ያኮራል። በየደረሱበት የጠረጠሩ የአዝማሪ ውስታዝ መጋልተን ያረጉበት This is one string, masinko. You know, this calling masinko. Zamana ho chechno. Bagar nam kizane bilamno. This is one string, masinko. You know, how do you define Ethiopian music? Ethiopian music. I want to go market. Shut up, my English is broken. Understanding, please. I want to go market to buy umbrella. My cameraman. I want to go market to buy umbrella. You are beautiful as Modan Karavella. ናቸው በሽቶ የራሱ አይናቸው ትላልቅ በቅጣቱ አሺ በተለይ አበሻዋ አይንስ ትላልቅ ነው ያቺ ማለት ነው። አዎ ያቺ በልጣ አይንስ ትላልቅ ነው በእርግጥ አያስዋሽም ዓይንሽ ትላልቅ ነው በእርግጥ አያስዋሽም አሁን ለዚህ ጋር ባለገ ሰው ከወረወርሽ ግን ሳይጠብስ አያመሽም ማይክ እስታን ባስቸግር ኮኔክሽን ባይኖረኝ እንኳን ባይሰኝ እኔ ለማስንቆ ጌታ ነበርኩኝ ገናዬ